What's going on, guys? Welcome to Rob's house. We're doing another C8 mod today. As you can see, I have the battery disconnected here because today we are swapping out the steering wheel. So if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you know that one of the things that I like to do in my cars is to get custom steering wheels made. And now, there's nothing wrong with the stock steering wheel, but I like having kind of a beefier grip, and you know, having some carbon fiber is nice too. This one's just a full leather steering wheel that came in the car. You can see kind of on my Viper over here, you know, custom car. This one is a forged carbon steering wheel with the matching red grips, you know, a little more aggressive. I just kind of like it better. You know, the steering wheel is the thing you're touching all the time, right? I like having, like I said, a thicker grip. The factory steering wheels are a little thin. Although they've gotten better over the years, I have to say the C8 stock steering wheel is not that bad. The C7 one was pretty thin, so it was nice to have the upgraded grips. I'm gonna show you guys how to pull the steering wheel off on the C8 today. We're also gonna install carbon fiber paddle shifters. I'm gonna show you how to get this wheel off first, and then we'll head over to the bench and swap everything over to our new wheel. Now, the first thing we need to do is we have to get the airbag off. And now they actually made this a little bit easier on the C8 Corvette. You could see kind of behind the paddle shifter here, if my camera is going to focus, there's this little plastic piece that you can remove with a trim tool. You can just pry it off. It's held on by a clip. And once you get that off, there's a 10mm bolt under it. There's one on each side, and that will free up the airbag. Now, why is that better than previous generations? The typical design that most manufacturers use is they just had these sort of tabs where the airbag would sort of click into place, and you'd have to jam a screwdriver or an Allen wrench or something in there and kind of feel around and push in to release each side. It was kind of annoying. So it's kind of nice now that they have it where it literally just unbolts. So I'm going to unbolt it, and when I begin disassembly, I am going to put on the head-mounted camera, and I'll walk you guys through this. All right, guys, so got those bolts out. They are on the side here. You can see in there where I took the bolts out on each side. And now that I have that out, the airbag is free. So if we kind of pull the airbag out a little bit, we can see a couple things that we need to disconnect here. I hope you guys can see that on camera. But basically, these purple and pink connectors, they have these tabs on each side, and we need to lift up on those tabs. So if I just use a trim removal tool on one side and a little flathead on the other side. There it goes. So it's a little tricky because you have this ground wire kind of in the middle to pry all the way up. All right, guys, so basically when you lift up on these two tabs, right, it releases these connectors. And then for this red connector, this is the one that was connected to this thing. You just have to lift up on this tab. So I just took a tiny little flathead in here, lifted up like this on this piece, and it slid right out. Airbag is out. We can set that aside. Don't need to mess with that until it is time to reinstall. Now we got to actually remove the wheel. So we're going to do a couple things here. First is we're going to unplug this main connector here. All right, so fish this red lock tab piece out with a flathead, and then we can depress the button here. This should unplug. There we go. All right, that is going to allow us to pull this wheel off. So basically this main connector is part of the main harness that runs through the entire steering wheel. So this is gonna come off with the wheel, but we had to unplug the actual connector piece back here. Notice it's a little wobbly, which is a little weird. Anyway, main bolt, T50 Torx. I'm gonna grab the impact. It is stubborn, but it will come off. It's got blue Loctite on it. That's why it's so stubborn. And now, so one of the tricks here is to reinstall the nut a couple threads in, because we have to pull this wheel off We don't want to fly out and hit us in the face. Okay, there we go. We'll have to muscle it a little bit, and then the wheel comes right off. So let's move over to the workbench. I'm gonna start taking this wheel apart now. So there's a couple of Torx bolts here. So first of all, there's a T20 down in here. I don't know if you can really see it. So I'm using my Harbor Freight tool here because regular screwdriver with like a removable bit attachment is too fat. I don't know if you can see that, but it's too fat to fit in there. So we're gonna use the ones that have the handles on them. These are T20. Worth noting that some of these are on tighter than they need to be. Both of those, in fact, very tight. Unnecessary. Unnecessary. Get those. This guy, we're gonna have to flip it over. Get that guy out. All right. We also have to remove this trim piece. This is smaller. I want to see T10 or T15. It's a T10. So there's two of these guys in here. I'm gonna remove these. We can get this bezel off. Trim piece comes off. Another thing we need to do here is pry up on these connectors on the bottom. I know at least one of them needs to be released, and I think it's the one on the right hand side. So the way you do that is simply push apart on these tabs while getting one of your other fingers under there to pry up on it. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but that's how these guys release. Now, the cool thing about this assembly is it all comes off sort of in two pieces. Now, a lot of it is held on in the back. So the first thing here is we're gonna have to remove our paddle shifters. So again, T20 here, just two little bolts holding it on, two little screws, very simple. That should free up our paddle shifter here. Now we do have to unplug it. So, all right guys, so there's two parts to this connector. So there's this safety latch. So you see this clear safety latch? I got that out with my flathead, and now I should be able to actually, if I get that all the way out, I can push down and actually remove the connector. A little stubborn, but comes out. Now, for our paddles, we are going to have to transfer some of this stuff over, but I'll get to that in a second. For now, we're just going to remove both of these paddle shifters. Same exact thing on the other side. Same exact procedure here. Release the safety tab, push down, and pull the connector out. All right, we'll come back to those when it comes time to reinstall the paddles. For now, we have to take the rest of this bezel apart. So we've got a few things holding everything on. We have these 4 bolts here, and then if you notice on the back side here, there's several more screws. All right, so we're gonna remove these 4 T20 Torx, more T20s here. No, these are all the same, so you don't have to worry necessarily about separating them. They're all the same length and everything. So they're interchangeable here. Let's get this back cover off, and then that, well, that's going to give us access to the rest of the screws. Now, in order to pop this off, I'm going to have to do a little bit of prying here, but there's going to be some connectors that we have to unplug. So once we have that sort of free, it's kind of hard to see, but there are 2 connectors in here, one on each side, that we have to remove. You're gonna need some kind of like a flathead or something to do this. We got a bunch of Loctite going on over here. So these are the same type of connector that we saw with the paddle shifters. So they do have this little safety latch that you have to remove first. I don't know if you guys could see that, but basically you've got, trying to get it on camera here, but you got a safety latch and then you can unplug it. So it's an identical connector style to this one on the paddle shifter, right? You have to pull this little safety tab out and then you can depress the release lever. Gotta do that on each side. One over here is teal. You don't have to be super rough with these, so if you feel like you're forcing it, you're gonna break something. They're not that hard to get off. Now, this steering wheel does have a heating element, so you can see the heating element wire coming out here. So we are going to have to remove the heating element, and that is this plug here. So we got a couple things. First of all, it is zip tied here, so I'm going to carefully remove this zip tie without cutting the wires, obviously. Once that's free, I should be able to unplug this connector. Boom, there it is. And like I said, you can leave that one kind of shoved in there. I disconnected this to make it easier to kind of move the back half around. Now that we got that disconnected, we got a bunch more T20s here. And these are holding on these switches. They hold it on from behind. So we're gonna remove all 4 of these, and then actually our whole switch assembly should come free. Now these are slightly different from the other, they're T20s, but the heads on them are smaller. So we gotta get those out. Like I said, there's 4 on each side, so there's 8 of these total. Very simple. So, you know, this is a little more involved than some other steering wheels because you have more bolts to remove, but the nice thing is you won't really have to reroute many of these wires. And that's because now we should be totally free of the wheel, and we can fish this back piece through and we're out. See, it comes off in one nice assembly. So that's pretty neat, I think. Just makes it easier to swap out. Let's grab the new wheel. Check this thing out, guys. Color matched for the interior and everything. So we're basically just gonna reverse those installation steps. Now, note, we have a heating element here. It's gonna plug in the exact same way as before. But in order to do that, first we're basically just gonna reverse all these steps. So we're gonna fish this guy through, and we need to line up our front switches here. Now, a little shortcut trick we could do here is putting some of these T20s in the front. So just to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't move around too much on us. We don't have to go all the way down on the torque yet. I'm gonna actually probably line up the back screws first. I'm just gonna get these snug. I'm gonna flip it on over. I notice I just have a shop towel down so I don't scratch all this carbon. Oh, it looks like this had some screws in it that I don't think we'll need. All right, so now we're gonna use our original screws here, and we're gonna install our switches. Again, guys, I hope this is coming through okay on video. I know it's not super easy to see what I'm doing here, but like I said, this is the boring part. Getting that switch cover mounted. Okay, and we got one more on this side. Now that that's on, we're gonna reverse this process here. So first things first, I'm going to plug in our heating element here. So we want to plug that in, and we want to make sure that that red lock tab is in as well. All right, once we got that in, we can begin reinstalling this rear cover here. Now, it's going to be slightly tricky. We're going to have to tuck these wires such that they don't obstruct where we're going to put the paddle shifters. All right, so worth noting that that's somewhat non-trivial here. So we're going to plug these connectors back in on both sides. Now, this one side is a little tricky. We got one side in there, but this other one is going to be a little bit of a pain. With that plugged in, we should be able to slide this cover back into place here. All right, now it's important that we left enough room here to reinstall the paddle shifters. But first we're gonna install the 220s. All right guys, my GoPro overheated there, but I got the screws back on. I'm working on the paddle shifter. Now, the way these work is these tabs, you just lift up on these and you can slide this cover off like so. And then what we're gonna do is that exposes the pin. Now this pin right here is what's holding it into place. So we're going to use our flathead. Maybe not, maybe we're gonna use a punch. Anyway, the pin comes through here, so, okay, we're at the flathead. You just gotta really kind of wedge it in there. Start pulling this pin out. So this pin just holds, so once I get it all the way out, it holds the entire paddle shifter assembly here. Oh, okay, now, yeah, we want to make sure we get that, we don't lose that white piece here. All right, so that's the paddle. It's actually a really easy assembly to take apart. So now if I show you our new paddles, we got some extended carbon fiber paddles for this new wheel. Very nice. And what we're gonna do here is basically just swing this on in reverse. So we just swing that guy on in, and then we're going to reinstall the retaining pin. The pin goes from the top down. So push that pin back on through. Might be a little bit stubborn toward the end, mine is. I'm going to try to push it through with a punch here. There we go. So, you know, just tap it with a punch if you have to. Just be careful so you don't scratch the carbon. And then we can reinstall this paddle. So let's put this this cover back on. So it goes this way. And basically you just line it up here and slide it back on. Boom. Good to go. Now, we need to reinstall the paddle into the steering wheel. How do we do that? Very simple. Very annoying, guys. My GoPro keeps dying on me. I'm ready to reinstall this paddle. So, see this hole? You have to make sure that when you're about to reinstall the paddle, that this, like, hook, you have to swing that into the hole. So you want to line this guy up, okay? Watch my heating element here. I want to line this guy up and then fold over till I line up my screws. Then I can put my T20s in. All right, guys, that's ready to go. Now, guys, it is worth noting there's this flat spot on the bottom. I don't know if you can see it, but where the steering wheel reconnects. So it can actually only go back on one way, which is cool. So you basically can't screw up reinstalling it with respect to like misaligning it or anything. So I'm just going to reinstall everything. Basically, well, I can plug the main harness in right now, and then we're going to, let me get that main harness in. All All right, once that's in, push the red lock tab down. It's not going anywhere now. I'm gonna reinstall that bolt. I'm gonna put a little bit of blue Loctite on it. Get it in there with the impact. Put the airbag back on, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Pro tip, guys, I got all distracted by my GoPro dying that I didn't even realize that I didn't fish through the connectors for the paddle shifters. So make sure you do that. Make sure you plug your paddle shifters in. Like I said, they swing in, so basically you're gonna, you know, connect your plug first, and then it's gonna basically swing into that little claw is gonna grab into that hole and swing into place. I need both my hands to do it, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All done, guys. Check it out. I think it matches the interior pretty well. The color's really close. Did a really good job. I like the paddles. They're a lot bigger, a lot more aggressive. Fitment's really good. Yeah, all around looks awesome. Get in the car, I can show you what it looks like in the car. You see the paddles kind of stick up more at stock. They end about here, kind of where my finger is, but these are a lot longer, so that's cool. I'm gonna go get the shop cleaned up now, and I have to put the plastic battery cover back on the car and all that stuff. But as usual, hope this video is helpful, hope this video is entertaining, and I'll see you guys next time.